Single mother who lost everything but refused to give up. She never imagined her life would become this quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that echoes. The kind that reminds you of everything you lost. She used to believe love meant safety, that marriage meant partnership, that hard work would always be enough. She believed that if she stayed kind, if she stayed patient, if she stayed silent when things hurt, everything would eventually fix itself. She was wrong. At 24 she became a wife. At 26 she became a mother. And somewhere between sleepless nights and unpaid bills, she slowly disappeared. He used to smile at her once, used to ask about her dreams, used to hold her hand like it mattered. But time changed him. Or maybe time revealed him. The shouting started quietly. Small words, sharp tones, long silences. Then blame. Always blame. She blamed herself too. For not being enough. For asking for help. For dreaming too big. When the money started disappearing, so did the love. Rent notices replaced love notes. And apologies stopped coming. The night he left, he did not slam the door. He did not say goodbye. He simply walked out, taking the car, taking the savings, taking the future she thought they shared. She stood in the doorway holding her child, watching taillights fade, realizing she was completely alone. No job, no support, no family nearby, just a small apartment, an empty fridge, and a child who needed her to be strong. She cried that night, quietly, so her child would not hear. She cried not because he left, but because she did not know how she would survive. The days that followed were heavy. Waking up felt like lifting a mountain. She skipped meals so her child could eat. She sold her wedding ring, then her phone, then anything that held value. Every rejection letter felt personal. Every closed door felt final. She stood in long lines, filled out endless forms, explained her pain to strangers who never looked her in the eyes. Some days she wanted to disappear. Not die. Just stop existing for a while. But every time she looked at her child, sleeping peacefully, trusting her completely, something inside her refused to break. She reminded herself, this little human did not choose this life, but she could choose how to fight for it. At night, when the world went quiet, she made promises to herself. Soft promises, fragile promises. I will not let this be the end. I will not let pain define us. I will keep going even when I am afraid. The fear never left, but courage grew around it. She found a job cleaning offices at night. Minimum pay, maximum exhaustion. She came home smelling like chemicals. Hands cracked, eyes burning, but heart still beating. She studied during lunch breaks, watched free videos, learned skills while rocking her child to sleep. Time passed slowly. Then suddenly, one rejection turned into an interview. One interview into a chance. It was not success. It was survival. But survival was enough. She learned how to stand again. How to say no. How to ask for help without shame. The woman who once begged for love now built boundaries. The woman who once stayed silent now spoke up. She was still tired, still scared, still healing. But she was no longer broken. And her child, watching everything, learning strength from her struggle, learning courage from her tears. This was not the life she dreamed of, but it was the life she fought for. And that made all the difference. The nights became longer, not because the hours changed, but because exhaustion weighed heavier than sleep. She would lie awake listening to the soft breathing of her child, counting each rise and fall of that tiny chest, as if making sure hope was still alive. Some mornings she woke up already tired, already behind, already wondering how many pieces of herself she would have to give away just to make it through the day. Bills stacked like quiet threats. Letters she stopped opening. Numbers she pretended not to see. There were days when the job barely covered daycare. Days when she questioned if leaving the abusive silence had been a mistake. Days when loneliness felt louder than any shouting she had escaped. People around her smiled and said stay strong. As if strength was something you could simply choose. As if courage did not cost anything. They did not see her shaking hands. Did not see her crying in bathroom stalls. Did not see the moments when she whispered apologies to her child for a life she was still learning how to build. One winter evening the heat stopped working. Snow pressed against the windows, and her child shivered under thin blankets. She called the landlord. Voicemail. She called again. And again. No answer. That night she wrapped her child in her own coat, held them close, and told stories about warmer days, about beaches and sunshine, about a future where everything felt safe. Inside she was terrified. She wondered how close she was to the edge, how many more setbacks she could survive, how much longer she could pretend she was okay. At her lowest point, sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinet, head in her hands, she allowed herself to feel everything: the anger, the grief, the unfairness, the rage at a system that let women fall so easily. She cried until there were no tears left, until silence filled the room. And in that silence, something shifted. Not hope, not yet, but clarity. She realized no one was coming to save her. No miracle, no sudden rescue. If her life was going to change, it would have to be because she changed it. The next morning she made a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one. A quiet decision, made over cold coffee, with tired eyes. She would stop surviving and start building. She reached out to community programs, women she had never met, who understood her pain without explanation. She attended free workshops, sat in rooms filled with strangers, sharing stories that sounded painfully familiar. For the first time she did not feel weak. She felt seen. She learned about confidence, about financial independence, about boundaries, about healing. Every lesson felt like reclaiming a stolen piece of herself. Progress was slow, frustratingly slow, but it was real. She saved small amounts, celebrated tiny victories, a paid bill, a fridge with food, a warm room. Her child grew, laughed more, asked questions, dreamed out loud, and she listened. She started imagining again. Not a perfect life, just a better one. One where fear did not lead, one where pain did not decide her worth. She applied for a new position, one that scared her, one that felt too big. When she walked into the interview, her knees shook, but her voice did not. She spoke honestly, about struggle, about resilience, about learning the hard way. They listened. Days later, when the phone rang, she almost did not answer. When she heard the words, "We would like to offer you this position," she sat down, breath caught in her chest. It was not riches. It was not fame. But it was stability. And stability felt like freedom. She walked home that day, smiling through tears, holding her child's hand. For the first time in a long time, the future did not feel like a threat. It felt like a possibility. And she stepped toward it. One brave, exhausted, hopeful step at a time. She did not celebrate loudly. There was no music, no cheering crowd, just a quiet moment alone. Standing in the kitchen, hand over her mouth, as if afraid the happiness might escape. That night she cooked a simple meal, sat with her child, and laughed. A real laugh. The kind that surprises you because you forgot how it felt. But healing is never a straight line. Even as life slowly improved, the past followed her. In sudden memories, in flinches at raised voices, in the fear that everything good could disappear. Some nights she still woke up panicked, heart racing, mind replaying old words, old moments, old wounds. She learned that strength did not mean never breaking. It meant learning how to put yourself back together. She began therapy, sat across from someone who listened, really listened. She spoke about guilt, about shame, about staying too long, about leaving too late. And slowly, sentence by sentence, the weight lifted. She forgave herself. Not all at once, but enough to breathe. At work she proved herself. Showed up early, stayed late, asked questions, learned fast. Her confidence grew quietly. No arrogance, just certainty. She moved to a better place. Small, but warm, with sunlight that filled the rooms. She painted the walls, let her child choose the colors. And for the first time, That space felt like home. She stopped apologizing for existing, stopped shrinking herself, stopped believing she had to earn kindness. She started saying no, without explaining, without guilt. People noticed the change. Some admired it, some resented it, but she no longer needed approval. Her child watched everything. The long nights, the early mornings, the tears, the progress. And without realizing it, she was teaching the most important lesson of all, that life can hurt you deeply, and you can still rise. Years passed, not perfectly, but honestly. She paid off debts, built savings, made plans. She learned joy could be calm, not dramatic, just steady. One afternoon, while helping her child with homework, she paused. The realization hit her quietly. She was no longer in survival mode. She was living. The woman who once begged for stability now created it. The woman who once feared being alone now trusted herself. She still carried scars, but they no longer defined her. They reminded her of who she was, of what she survived, of what she built with her own hands. Her story did not end with pain. It continued through it. And somewhere out there, another woman, sitting on a kitchen floor, feeling broken, feeling invisible, would one day hear this story and realize, if she could do it, maybe I can too. She never planned to become an example, never imagined her pain would mean something to anyone else. But life has a quiet way of turning wounds into wisdom. One evening after work, scrolling through her phone, she came across a message from a woman she barely knew. I heard your story. I am where you once were, and I do not know how to leave. Her chest tightened. She stared at the screen, fingers trembling, memories rushing back like cold air. She remembered that night on the kitchen floor, the silence, the fear, the feeling that the world had ended, and she realized her survival was no longer just hers. She replied slowly, carefully, honestly, I was afraid too. I still am sometimes. But fear does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. That conversation became many messages, calls, quiet late-night talks. She never gave perfect advice. She only shared truth. That leaving is hard. That staying is harder. That healing takes time. That strength grows when you least expect it. She began volunteering, not because she felt brave, but because she remembered what it felt like to feel alone. Sitting in small rooms, listening to familiar stories, she saw herself in every woman, different faces, same fear. And every time a woman said, I thought I was the only one, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Her child grew older, stronger, curious. One day they asked, why did you work so much when I was little? She paused, chose her words gently, because I wanted you to grow up knowing that no matter how hard life gets, you never give up on yourself. Her child nodded, as if understanding something much bigger than the words. Years later, when her child stood taller, dreamed louder, believed deeper, she saw it. The legacy, not money, not status, resilience. The woman she once was, the one who cried silently, who doubted herself, who felt invisible. She thanked her, because without that version, this one would not exist. She learned that losing everything did not mean losing herself. It meant finding who she truly was. And if you are listening to this now, feeling tired, feeling afraid, feeling like the weight is too heavy, remember this. You do not need to see the whole path. You only need to take the next step. Strength is not loud. It is quiet, persistent, unbreakable. Just like her, just like you. Her life is not perfect, but it is hers. And that matters more than anything. If this story found you in a quiet moment, if it found you tired, if it found you questioning your worth, know this. You are not weak for feeling overwhelmed. You are not broken for feeling lost. You are not failing because things are hard. You are becoming. Every woman who rises does so slowly, silently, one choice at a time. And one day, without realizing when it happened, she looks back and sees how far she has come. Not because the world changed, but because she did. This is not just her story. It is the story of every woman who lost everything and refused to give up. And if she can rise, so can you. There is a quiet moment that comes after the storm. Not relief, not celebration, just stillness. She learned to sit in that stillness, to breathe without fear, to exist without apology. The world still moves fast around her. People rush, voices rise, expectations press. But inside, she is steady. She knows now that strength is not something you are born with. It is something you build. In the dark, in the waiting, in the moments no one sees. She no longer measures her life by what she lost. She measures it by what she protected. Her child, her dignity, her future. Sometimes she stands by a window at night, lights glowing in the distance, and thinks about the woman she used to be, the one who felt trapped, the one who believed survival was the same as living. She sends her love, not shame, not anger, because that woman did the best she could, with what she knew at the time, and that was enough. She understands now that courage is choosing yourself, again and again, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels lonely, even when no one is watching. Her story will never be written in headlines, but it will be written in hearts, in the woman who finally leaves, in the mother who keeps going, in the child who grows up believing safety is possible. This is how change happens. Not all at once, not loudly, but steadily. And if you are listening, right now, feeling like your strength is running out, pause, breathe. You are still here. And that means your story is still unfolding. Not because life became easy, but because you became stronger. Quietly, beautifully, unbreakably, in the quiet after everything. She understands something simple, something powerful. That survival taught her how to listen. To her body, to her instincts, to the voice inside that once whispered and now speaks clearly. She no longer rushes her healing, no longer compares her journey, no longer questions her worth. She lets days be heavy when they are heavy, and light when they allow it. She trusts herself. That trust took years to build. Brick by brick, choice by choice. Every time she chose to get up. Every time she chose to try again. Every time she chose love over fear. She knows now that strength does not erase softness. She can be gentle, and still be unbreakable. She can cry, and still be powerful. She can rest, and still be worthy. Her child sees this, feels it, learns it without being taught. And one day, long from now, that child will carry this lesson into the world. That life can bend you, but it does not have to end you. She does not need proof anymore. She does not need validation. She knows who she is. A woman who lost everything and discovered herself. A mother who built safety from nothing. A human being who chose hope, even when hope felt impossible. And if this story settles into you, if it stays with you longer than expected, let it remind you that even in your quietest moments, you are becoming someone stronger than yesterday. You do not need permission. You do not need perfect timing. You only need courage. And courage often looks like continuing. This is not the end. It is the pause before your next breath, your next step, your next becoming. And somewhere ahead, there is a version of you who made it through. She is waiting, and she believes in you. The ending does not arrive with noise. It arrives like a soft hand on the shoulder, a reminder that you are still standing. She breathes differently now, slower, deeper, as if her body finally trusts the world again. She understands that healing did not erase her past. It gave it meaning. Every scar became a map. Every tear became a teacher. She no longer asks why this happened to me. She asks, what did this teach me? And the answer is always the same. That she is stronger than she ever believed. That love should never require silence. That safety is not a luxury. That choosing yourself is not selfish. She carries this knowing into every day, into every quiet decision, into every moment she shows up for herself. Her life may never look perfect from the outside, but inside, it is whole, and that wholeness matters. If this story found you late at night, if it found you tired, if it found you holding on by a thread, let this be the moment you realize you are not behind. You are not weak. You are not alone. You are still becoming, just like her, the woman who lost everything and found something greater, herself. And somewhere, someday, when the weight feels lighter and the breath comes easier, you will look back and understand this was the moment everything quietly changed, not because the world softened, but because you did. And that is how strength lives. Forever, not the heavy kind, but the calm kind. The kind that comes after understanding. She knows that strength is not proven in moments of victory. It is proven in moments of choice. The ones that feel small. The ones that feel invisible. The ones no one applauds. Every morning she chooses herself again. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just steadily. She chooses to wake up. To care. To try. She chooses to believe that her life has value. Even on days when nothing feels extraordinary, there are moments when she still feels the old fear. A sudden tightening. A memory passing through. But it no longer defines her. It reminds her of where she started, of what she survived. She understands now that her past does not disqualify her. It qualifies her. It gave her depth, compassion, wisdom. It taught her how to see others, how to listen without judgment, how to recognize pain without being afraid of it. She notices the women around her, the ones who smile too hard, the ones who apologize too often, the ones who carry invisible weight. She does not rush them. She does not push. She simply stands as proof that there is another way forward. Her presence becomes a quiet permission. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to start over. She no longer needs to be fearless. She understands now. Courage was never the absence of fear. It was walking forward with it. And if you are still listening, still breathing with this story, then you are already stronger than you think. Because something inside you recognized this truth. That pain does not get the final word. That endings are often beginnings. That survival is not the same as failure. She once thought her story was over. That losing everything meant becoming nothing. But now she knows. Sometimes losing everything is how you find yourself. She sits quietly by the window, watching the light shift across the room, feeling the steady rhythm of her own breathing. And for the first time, she lets herself believe that this is enough. Not enough in the sense of perfection, but enough in the sense of survival. Enough in the sense of life reclaimed. Enough in the sense of a soul unbroken. She remembers every night she thought she could not go on. Every day she dragged herself forward. Every tear. Every fear. Every quiet, trembling heartbeat that said, "Keep going." And she smiles softly, because each step, each choice, each small act of courage has brought her here. Her child sleeps peacefully nearby, trusting, believing, learning, and she knows that the future is brighter, not because life is safe, but because they learn strength together. She reflects on the woman she once was, the one who lost everything, who felt invisible, who doubted herself, who thought survival was the limit. She nods to her past self, gently, gratefully, because that woman made today possible. She understands now that life's true victories are not measured by wealth or recognition, but by resilience, by the courage to keep choosing yourself, by the ability to rise even when the world seems determined to push you down. Her story will never be loud. It will never dominate headlines, but it will live, quietly, in hearts that need it, in moments when someone else whispers to herself, "I can do this," because she did. And when the world feels heavy again, she knows she can carry it, because she has carried the impossible before. Her life is not perfect. Her journey is not complete, but she has become something timeless. A woman who found herself, a mother who protected hope, a human who discovered strength. And in this quiet moment, she closes her eyes, breathes deeply, and lets herself rest, not in surrender, but in knowing that she has arrived at a place she never imagined possible, a place of calm courage, a place of quiet power, a place of unwavering hope. And somewhere, beyond this room, beyond this story, other women will rise, guided by her courage, inspired by her survival, touched by the truth that losing everything does not mean losing yourself. It only means finding yourself, stronger, braver, unbroken. And she smiles one last time, not for the past, not for the future, but for the woman she is right now, for the life she built, for the love she holds, for the quiet victory of surviving and becoming. This is where the story rests, not because it is finished, but because it has given you what you need, a reminder, a reflection, a possibility. And when you rise from this moment, when you return to your life, carry this with you. You are not alone in your becoming. You never were.